The sun hung like a molten coin in the bruised sky, pressing down on the cracked earth of Xeris 7 with the weight of a dying star. Dust devils spun lazily across the scorched plain, ghosts of a world long stripped of water and mercy. Captain Rhett Vance wiped sweat from his brow with a grimy forearm, leaving a smear of grime and dried blood. His breath rasped inside his helmet, each inhalation tasting of metal and despair. Around him, the shattered remnants of Outpost Theta smoldered, twisted metal spires jutting from the ground like broken teeth, vehicles reduced to blackened husks, and the silent, still forms of men and women who had once shared coffee, jokes, and fears. The battle had been short, brutal, and one-sided. The enemy, tall, white-skinned warriors clad in golden armor that shimmered even in the wasteland's dull light, had swept through the human lines like scythes through dry grass. They moved with impossible grace, their weapons humming with energy that turned flesh to ash and steel to slag. And then, just as suddenly as they came, they were gone, vanishing into the heat haze as if they'd never been. Rhett stumbled forward, his boots crunching over fused glass and charred bone. He wasn't looking for survivors, he knew better. He was looking for answers, for meaning, for something to make sense of the carnage. His rifle dangled at his side, its power cell drained, useless. The silence was worse than the gunfire. It pressed against his eardrums, thick and suffocating. Then he saw it, a glint near the edge of the battlefield, half buried in red dust. Not metal, not debris, a helmet, golden, intricately carved with spirals that seemed to shift when stared at too long, like sunlight on water. It lay on its side, dented, cracked along the temple, as if flung there in haste or violence. He approached slowly, heart thudding not with fear now, but with a strange, rising curiosity. He knelt, brushing away the dust with trembling fingers. The material was cool despite the heat, smooth as polished stone yet lighter than foam. He lifted it gently, turning it in his hands. There were no seams, no visible fastenings. It fit perfectly around his head, but it wasn't meant for humans. No human had hair like that, because beneath the fallen warrior, lying unconscious but breathing in shallow, rhythmic pulses, was her. She was tall, taller than any woman Rhett had ever seen, and impossibly pale, her skin like moonlight given form. Her hair spilled around her like liquid silver, thick and radiant even in the dim light, pooling in the dust like a river of mercury. Her face was sharp, elegant, alien. High cheekbones, a narrow jaw, lips the color of frost. But her eyes, when they flickered open, they weren't the cold, emotionless voids Rhett had expected. They were wide, deep violet, filled with pain and something else. Something startlingly human. Fear, confusion, pride. She tried to rise, one gloved hand pressing into the dirt, but collapsed back with a gasp. The golden armor that covered her torso and limbs was cracked in several places, glowing faintly where the breaches were, as if trying to heal itself. She looked at Rhett, her gaze locking onto his. He froze. It wasn't hatred he saw. It was assessment. Distrust, yes, but also awareness. He should have shot her. That's what the manual said. That's what command would have ordered. Enemy combatant, high-value target, unknown bioweapon potential. But Rhett didn't reach for his sidearm. He couldn't. Something in those violet eyes held him still, like gravity. Instead, he did the unthinkable. He set the helmet down beside her and slowly, deliberately, removed his own. The air hit his face like fire, stinging his dry skin. He ran a hand through his short, dark hair, streaked with gray at the temples, and met her stare. "You're hurt," he said, voice hoarse. "I'm not gonna hurt you." She didn't respond, but her eyes narrowed slightly, pupils contracting. He reached into his pack and pulled out a canteen. Water was precious. On Xeris 7 it was worth more than gold. He unscrewed the cap and held it out. "Drink, please." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, painfully, she lifted a hand. Her fingers were long, slender, tipped with nails like polished ivory. She took the canteen, her touch brushing his cold electric. She sniffed the opening cautiously, then took a small sip. Her throat worked as she swallowed, and when she handed it back, her voice, when it came, was low and melodic, like wind through crystal chimes. "Why?" she asked. One word. Simple. Devastating. "Because you're not shooting me," Rhett said with a tired shrug. "And because I've seen enough death today to last 10 lifetimes." He offered a weak smile. Name's Rhett. Rhett Vance. I know you probably don't care, but I figured I'd introduce myself before you killed me. She studied him, then let out a sound, soft, breathy. At first he thought it was a scoff. Then he realized it was laughter. A quiet, disbelieving laugh. You are illogical, she said, wincing as she shifted. A soldier does not show mercy to an enemy. Maybe not, Rhett admitted. But I'm kinda done being just a soldier right now. He glanced around at the wreckage. We lost. You won. So why aren't you finishing the job? Her expression darkened. My people do not finish what is already broken. She looked at the helmet in the dust. That was taken from me. By my own. Rhett picked it up again, frowning. Your own? You mean your side did this? She nodded slowly. They believe I failed. That I showed weakness by sparing lives during the assault. By questioning orders. Her voice dropped. I refused to kill civilians hiding in the bunker. They called it treason. Rhett stared at her. In all the briefings, the propaganda vids, the war chants, they'd painted the Golden Warriors as soulless machines, perfect soldiers without empathy, without hesitation. But here was one, bleeding in the dirt, cast out for having too much conscience. The irony wasn't lost on him. So you're a deserter, he said quietly. I am exiled, she corrected. Stripped of rank, of honor, of name. She looked away. I am nothing now. Rhett reached out, not touching her, but holding her gaze. You've got a name. You just don't remember it. Or you're afraid to say it. Either way, I'll call you Lyra, if that's okay. Sounds peaceful. Like music. She blinked. Lyra? Yeah. My sister used to play this old string instrument. Called it a lyre. Beautiful sound. Fitting for someone who laughs at dying soldiers offering water. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. You are strange, Rhett Vance. And you're bleeding out in a desert. So how about we focus on not dying first? Then we can discuss how weird I am. He helped her sit up, supporting her back with his arm. She was lighter than she looked, but radiated a strange warmth beneath the cold skin. As he worked to stabilize her wounds with field dressing, patching the cracks in her armor where glowing fluid seeped out, she watched him with growing fascination. You're kind, you are fragile, soft, yet you fight. We fight because we have to, Rhett said. Not because we're told without question. We argue, we complain, we write bad poetry. We fall in love with people who drive us crazy. That's what makes us strong. Not perfection, imperfection. She tilted her head. You speak as if you know my people. I've read the files, watched the footage. You're precise, disciplined, emotionless, or so they say. But you laughed. You spared innocence. You're not like them. No, she whispered. I am not. Over the next few hours, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon and the temperature plummeted, Rhett kept watch while Lyra rested. He scavenged what he could from the wreckage, power cells, rations, a working comm unit, though all channels were dead, and a thermal blanket. He built a small shelter from a piece of hull plating and wrapped her in the blanket, though she insisted she didn't need it. Our bodies regulate temperature differently, she explained. But, thank you. The gesture is warm. He grinned. Glad I could help, even if you're basically a space snow queen. She frowned. Snow queen. Never mind. Earth thing. Bad movie reference. He chewed on a nutrient bar, grimacing at the taste. So, Lyra, if that's okay, I gotta ask, why attack us? What do your people want? She hesitated. Resources. This planet sits atop a rare mineral, ziridium. It fuels our ships, powers our cities. Your presence here threatens the extraction. But we didn't come to fight, Rhett said. We were researchers, miners, settlers. And your government sent soldiers anyway, she countered. Your history is written in conquest. Ours is written in order, control. We believed removing your military presence would ensure peace. Didn't work out that way, huh? No, she admitted. War spreads like disease. Once begun, it consumes everything, even those who start it. Rhett leaned back, staring up at the stars. They were brighter here, clearer, untouched by pollution. Funny thing is, I used to hate your kind. Hated the idea of you. Thought you were monsters. Cold. Unfeeling. Now I meet you, and you're the most human person I've talked to in years. She turned to him. What do you mean? I mean, back home, everyone talks about duty, honor, patriotism. but they don't feel anything. They follow orders like robots. I joined the service to protect people. But somewhere along the line, I started following commands instead of conscience. You broke ranks because you couldn't kill innocent people. That takes guts. More than any medal I've ever earned. Lyra was silent for a long time. Then, softly, you would have done the same. Maybe, Rhett said, but I wouldn't have had the courage to admit it. The night passed in uneasy rest. Rhett dozed in fits, waking at every rustle of wind, every distant echo of crumbling metal. Lyra slept deeply, her breathing slow and steady, her body healing at an unnatural rate. By dawn, the cracks in her armor had sealed, the glow fading to a soft pulse. When she opened her eyes, she looked stronger, clearer. You stayed, she said. Where else would I go? Rhett asked, handing her a ration pack. Earth's a long walk. She examined the food packet with mild horror. This is what you eat? It's edible. Barely. Consider it a cultural exchange. She managed a small bite, then made a face. Your civilization is doomed. Rhett laughed. A real, full laugh that startled birds from the ruins. Okay. Next time I rescue a stranded alien warrior, I'll bring gourmet snacks. They spent the morning salvaging. Rhett found a working drone buried under debris, a small recon bot with limited flight capability. He jury-rigged the power source using parts from a dead plasma rifle and managed to get it airborne. It scanned the area, confirming what Rhett already feared. No human signals. No reinforcements. The entire outpost was gone. Command had likely written them off as casualties of war. Meanwhile, Lyra tested her strength, moving carefully, testing her balance. She picked up her helmet, studying the crack. Without this, I cannot return. It bears my insignia, my identity. So you want to go back? Rhett asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. She looked at him. To be executed for disobedience? To be erased? No. But without it, I am vulnerable. My people track these helmets. Without mine, I am invisible, but also unprotected. Rhett nodded slowly. Then we find a way to fix it, or fake it, or, I don't know. Paint it silver and say it's a new model. She almost smiled. You have no idea how complex these systems are. And you have no idea how stubborn I am when I set my mind to something. It was then that the ground trembled. A low, mechanical hum vibrated through the sand. Rhett froze, scanning the horizon. From the east, a massive shape emerged. A land carrier, angular and armored, marked with the golden sigil of the alien fleet. It moved slowly, methodically, scanning the battlefield. Not friendly, not civilian, recon or cleanup crew. Either way, if they found Lyra, she was dead. Hide! Rhett hissed, grabbing her arm. There's nowhere, she whispered. They have thermal sensors. They will see us. Rhett's mind raced. Then he remembered the drone. He activated it, programming a quick loop, fly low, emit a false heat signature mimicking a running engine, then crash it into the western ridge. He launched it just as the carrier turned toward their position. The drone zipped away, a tiny blur against the sky. The carrier paused, then altered course, drawn to the decoy. Seconds later, a distant explosion lit the ridge. They'll investigate, Rhett said. But it buys us time. Lyra stared at him, stunned. You tricked them. Hey, I may not have fancy armor or laser guns, but I've got brains and a knack for making dumb things work. Comes from growing up poor and fixing everything with duct tape and hope. She looked at him differently now. Not just with gratitude, but with something warmer. Respect. Maybe the beginnings of trust. You are unlike any human I have encountered. And you're unlike any alien. Most of them try to kill me on sight. They moved quickly after that, abandoning the shelter and heading south, toward the canyon network where satellite coverage was weak and terrain provided cover. Rhett carried extra supplies. Lyra moved with increasing strength, her steps sure and silent. They spoke little, conserving energy, but the silence between them wasn't empty. It was comfortable, charged with unspoken thoughts. By midday, they reached the edge of the Black Scar, a deep fissure in the planet's crust, rumored to house underground rivers and ancient caves. Rhett consulted a cracked tablet from his pack. If the old survey maps are right, there's a network down there. Might have salvageable tech. Maybe even a working comms relay. Lyra touched the rock wall, her fingers tracing symbols carved into the stone. Ancient, forgotten. This place, it is sacred to my people. A burial ground. We believed it cursed. Great. So ghosts and radiation. Just what I wanted for lunch. She gave him a look. You mock, but you do not understand. My ancestors died here, fighting your kind, long before this war began. Rhett sobered. Wait, you mean humans were here before? In the past cycle. Thousands of years ago. They came, mined, destroyed, and left. We buried our dead and vowed never to return. And now we're back, Rhett said. History really does repeat itself, doesn't it? They descended into the canyon, the air growing cooler, the light dimming. Bioluminescent moss clung to the walls, casting an eerie blue glow. Strange insects chirped in the shadows. Rhett kept his sidearm ready, though he hoped not to use it. Deeper in, they found the entrance. A sealed door of black alloy, covered in dust. Rhett used a plasma torch to cut through. Inside, the chamber stretched far beyond the beam of his flashlight. Crates lined the walls. Machines stood dormant. And in the center, a console, blinking with faint light. It's alive, Rhett breathed. Lyra approached cautiously. This is pre-war technology. Ancient, but functional. Rhett powered up the console, fingers flying over the interface. After a series of clicks and whirs, a hologram flickered to life. A map of the sector pulsing with data. Jackpot. This is a regional hub. Can boost signals, access encrypted channels, maybe even contact off-world allies. Lyra's eyes widened. You could call for help. Human reinforcements. Rhett paused, then shook his head. No, not yet. First, we need to know what we're dealing with. And second, he looked at her. I'm not turning you in. She stepped closer. You would risk court-martial? Execution? For doing the right thing? Yeah. I think I would. Their eyes held. The air between them felt charged, thick with something neither could name. Then, without warning, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. The system had detected an external breach. They're here, Lyra said, voice tight. Rhett grabbed his rifle. How? The helmet, she realized. It must have activated a homing beacon when we disturbed the site. My people, they tracked it. Footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Heavy, armored. Rhett sealed the door behind them with the torch, but it wouldn't hold long. We need another way out. Lyra pointed to a ventilation shaft in the ceiling. There, leads to lower levels. Rhett boosted her up, then scrambled after as the door groaned under impact. They crawled through narrow tunnels, dropping into a cavern lit by geothermal vents. Strange crystals jutted from the walls, humming with energy. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a device shaped like a crown, pulsing with soft gold light. What is that? Rhett whispered. Lyra approached, awed. The helm of resonance, a relic, said to restore lost identity, to reconnect the exile to the collective. It is myth, or maybe just really well hidden. Before she could respond, the shaft above exploded. Golden armored figures dropped down. 4 of them, weapons raised, visors glowing red. Their leader stepped forward, voice distorted by the helmet. Lyra of House Vale, you stand accused of treason, desertion, and defiance of the High Accord. Surrender and face judgment. Lyra straightened, lifting her chin. I will not return to be executed for showing mercy. You abandoned your post, your people, your purpose. My purpose is not to kill the innocent, she snapped. And you are not my people anymore. You are machines wearing skins. The leader raised a weapon. Then you die as a traitor. Rhett stepped in front of her. Over my dead body. The alien laughed. A cold, hollow sound. Human, you are less than dust. Move aside. Rhett didn't flinch. I said no, and I meant it. The standoff lasted a heartbeat. Then chaos erupted. Rhett fired first, hitting one warrior in the knee joint, disrupting the armor's balance. Lyra moved like lightning, snatching up a fallen weapon and disarming another. The cavern became a storm of energy blasts, ricocheting off crystal walls. Rhett dove behind a pillar, firing in controlled bursts. One alien lunged at him, but Lyra intercepted, slamming her elbow into its helmet with a sickening crack. The visor shattered, revealing a face identical to hers, yet colder, lifeless. You don't have to do this, Rhett shouted over the din. She's one of you. She is broken, the leader hissed, and must be unmade. Lyra grabbed the helm from the pedestal. It flared to life, wrapping around her head like liquid gold, sealing the crack, restoring its brilliance. Power surged through her. Her eyes blazed violet. "I am not broken," she declared, voice echoing with authority. "I am reborn." With a wave of her hand, the crystals responded, focusing energy into a beam that struck the remaining warriors, knocking them back. The leader staggered, stunned. "Impossible! The helm chooses only the worthy." "And it chose mercy," Lyra said, "not blind obedience." Rhett stared at her, breathless. She was radiant, terrifying, beautiful. The wounded aliens retreated, vanishing into the tunnels. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the crystals. Lyra removed the helm, breathing heavily. "It's over. For now," Rhett said. "They'll be back." She turned to him. "And you stood with me, when you had every reason to walk away." He shrugged, trying to hide the tremble in his hands. "Guess I'm just a sucker for lost causes." She stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Her hand rose, brushing his cheek. Cold, but sending fire through his veins. "You called me Lyra, gave me a name when I had none, protected me, fought for me." Her voice softened. "No one has ever done that." Rhett swallowed hard. "Well, maybe I'm just an idiot." "No," she whispered. "You are the first person who's ever seen me. Not the warrior, not the exile. Me." And in that moment, surrounded by ancient stones and glowing crystals, with the threat of war looming beyond the cave walls, Rhett Vance knew he was lost. Not to duty, not to survival, but to her. To the alien woman with silver hair and violet eyes who had fallen from the sky and stolen something from him. He hadn't even known he'd lost. Hope. He didn't say it yet. Not aloud. But as he looked into her eyes, feeling the warmth of her touch despite her icy skin, he made a silent vow. He'd break every law in the galaxy, defy armies, burn empires, cross deserts and stars and time itself if he had to, just to keep her safe, just to have her. The silence in the cavern stretched, thick and humming with something neither of them could name. Something deeper than relief, stronger than adrenaline. The air crackled with the residual energy of the battle, but also with a new kind of current. Quiet, intimate, terrifying. Lyra's hand still rested against Rhett's cheek, her fingers trembling slightly, as if she were afraid to pull away, or afraid to stay. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Her touch was cold, yes, but it burned through him like starlight through ice. Then, slowly, she withdrew, stepping back. The moment fractured like glass. She turned toward the pedestal, placing the helm gently down. "It cannot be wielded lightly," she said, voice low. "It grants power, but also draws attention. My people will feel its activation. They'll come again." Rhett exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "So what now? Hide? Run? Try to bluff our way onto a freighter and disappear?" She looked at him, her violet eyes reflecting the soft glow of the crystals. "There is another way. A ship, buried deep beneath this canyon. An old vessel, forgotten but functional. If we can reach it, we could leave Xeris 7. Go somewhere they'd never think to look." "Like where?" Rhett asked, though he already knew the answer didn't matter. He'd follow her to the edge of the universe if she asked. "Anywhere," she said simply, "as long as it's far from war." They moved quickly after that, gathering supplies from the ancient cache, power cells, medgear, food packs sealed in alien alloy that somehow still held nutrients. Rhett jury-rigged a portable scanner from broken tech, using it to map the lower tunnels. The deeper they went, the stranger the place became. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins. Strange carvings told stories of exile, rebirth, forbidden love between human and alien ancestors, legends dismissed by both sides as myth. But here, carved in stone, they were real. "You knew about this, didn't you?" Rhett asked as they paused in a chamber filled with murals of intertwined figures. One pale and golden armored, the other dark-skinned and clad in rough fabric. "Your people. Ours. We've met before." Lyra traced the image with reverence. "Long ago, before the Great Silence, there was peace, trade, even families. But fear returned. Leaders twisted history, said we were corrupted, impure. So they erased the records, destroyed the ships, buried the truth." Rhett stared at the mural. "And now we're doing it all over again." She nodded. "But this time, maybe we don't have to." They found the ship 2 levels below. A sleek, obsidian craft shaped like a crescent moon, half buried in rock. It bore no insignia, no markings. just smooth, seamless metal that shimmered when touched. Lyra placed her palm on the hull. A pulse of light ran across the surface, and with a soft hiss, the hatch opened. Inside, the cockpit glowed with dormant energy. Alien script flickered on screens, responding to Lyra's presence. "It recognizes me," she whispered, "because of the helm. Or, because I belong here." Rhett climbed in behind her, squeezing into the co-pilot seat. More of a molded indentation than a chair. "So you're basically the chosen one now?" She glanced at him, a rare, genuine smile touching her lips. "I prefer lucky survivor." He grinned. "Either way, you're stuck with me." They drifted through the void for days, living on rations and stolen moments. Rhett taught her Earth songs badly. She taught him words in her language, soft, melodic sounds that meant home, safe, yours. They played cards with a deck he'd kept in his pack, betting with imaginary credits. She won every time, claiming humans were terrible at strategy. He accused her of cheating with alien mind tricks. She didn't deny it. One night, floating in zero gravity near Jupiter's moons, Rhett floated beside her, watching the gas giant swirl in the viewport. "Do you ever wonder what happens next?" he asked. "To us." She turned, her silver hair drifting like smoke. "I used to think the future was written in orders, in duty. Now, I think it's written by choices, by moments like this." He took her hand. "So what's our next choice?" She smiled. "We find a place, somewhere small, quiet, maybe a moon with oceans, trees, somewhere we can grow things, build something." "With no war?" he asked. "With no war," she promised. And so they flew, not toward victory, not toward revenge, but toward peace. Toward a life no manual had ever prepared them for. A life where a human soldier and an alien warrior could sit side by side, not as enemies, but as partners, as lovers, as something greater than the sum of their scars. They never made it to the neutral zone. 3 weeks later, a fleet appeared on long-range sensors, dozens of ships, bearing the golden sigils of Lyra's people and the red banners of Earth's military. A joint task force, a final purge. They had tracked the ancient ship. They had found the traitors. Rhett stood in the cockpit, staring at the blips on the screen. "Looks like they're serious this time." Lyra joined him, calm, resolute. "Then we face them." He turned to her. "We can run." "We can," she agreed. "But running won't end the war. Hiding won't bring peace. Maybe it's time someone spoke." "Spoke?" Rhett asked. "To both sides? After everything?" She took his hand. "Yes, because we are proof. Proof that we can coexist. That mercy isn't weakness. That love isn't treason." He studied her, the woman who had fallen from the sky, helmetless and defiant, who had made him believe in something more than survival. And he smiled. "All right, Space Queen," he said, flipping the comms to open channel. "Let's give them a show." He activated the broadcast, their faces appearing on every ship screen in the fleet. "This is Captain Rhett Vance of the Terran Defense Corps," he began, voice steady. "And Lyra of House Vale, former warrior of the Celestial Accord. We stand before you not as enemies, but as witnesses, to what war has cost us, to what peace could be." Lyra stepped forward. "We have seen the truth buried in the dust of Xeris 7. Our peoples have met before, lived together, loved, and we can again." Silence answered them, then chatter, outrage, orders barked, guns powered up. But then, from a human frigate, a single voice broke through. "Commander Elira Reyes, 3rd Fleet. I recognize your face, Vance. You saved my squad during the Ganymede retreat. If you say this is real, I believe you." From an alien cruiser, another transmission, "Warrior Kalen of House Vale, brother to Lyra. I felt your absence. I did not agree with your punishment. If you speak truth, I stand with you." One by one, voices rose, not all, but enough. Doubt, curiosity, hope. The fleets hesitated. And in that fragile pause, as stars burned cold and silent around them, Rhett and Lyra stood together, hands clasped, hearts beating in sync across species and silence. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in generations, peace had a chance. And love? Love had already won. The war didn't end that day in the void beyond Jupiter. Not completely. Old hatreds don't die with a single broadcast, and generals don't lay down their weapons just because 2 outcasts speak of peace. But something cracked open in the universe. something fragile, something bright. Enough ships powered down. Enough voices questioned the orders. And when Rhett and Lyra's ship, the Starborn as they'd named it, a name Rhett insisted on, despite Lyra calling it dramatic and inefficient, drifted between the opposing fleets without being fired upon, the silence spoke louder than any weapon ever could. They weren't arrested. Not then. Not by either side. Instead, they were listened to. It took years, long, grueling years of negotiations, of distrust, of setbacks and near-violent clashes. But Rhett and Lyra became symbols, not saints, not perfect heroes, just two people who had looked into each other's eyes across the battlefield and chosen life instead of death. They traveled from station to colony, from command deck to refugee camp, speaking not as warriors but as witnesses. Rhett, with his rough humor and soldier's honesty. Lyra, with her quiet strength and piercing truth. Together, they were impossible to ignore. And in the midst of it all, amidst peace summits and protest rallies and late-night debates about diplomacy and cultural exchange, they built a life. Not on Earth. Not on Lyra's distant homeworld, where golden spires rose above clouds of silver mist, but on a small moon orbiting a quiet blue planet called Elera 3, a neutral ground, gifted to them by both governments as a gesture, however reluctant, of goodwill. There, surrounded by rolling hills of violet grass and twin suns that painted the sky in gold and rose every evening, they built a home. It wasn't a fortress, not a bunker, not even a grand estate. It was a modest house of stone and glass with a wide porch, a garden that Rhett insisted on tending badly, and a roof that leaked when it rained, which on Elera 3 happened in gentle musical showers that smelled like ozone and wildflowers. And it was full, not just with furniture or tech or mementos from their travels, but with life, with laughter, with tiny feet pounding down the hallways, high-pitched voices arguing over toys, and the constant, beautiful chaos of children. Their first child was a girl, born under a triple eclipse, her hair a shimmering mix of silver and dark brown, her eyes a startling blend of violet and hazel. They named her Nova, for the light she brought into the world. Then came Kale, strong and serious, who at 3 years old tried to organize his siblings into military formation. For protection, he declared, marching around with a wooden spoon as a sword. Then Mira, curious and fearless, who climbed the tallest tree on the property before she turned 5 and refused to come down until promised ice cream. Then twins, Jax and Lissa, one mischievous, one thoughtful, inseparable even in mischief. Then Oren, quiet and brilliant, who spoke in full sentences at 10 months and built working robots out of scrap by age 6. And finally, the youngest, Solene, born with a cry so loud it startled the family dog into hiding for an hour. Her hair pure white like her mother's, her laugh pure red. 12 children in the end. 12 whirlwinds of energy, emotion, and endless questions. Dad, why do stars shine? Mom, can I have armor like yours when I'm older? Dad, Jax ate my toast. Mom, is love really stronger than plasma rifles? And always, Rhett and Lyra answered not just with words but with presence, with patience, with love that never ran out, even when they were exhausted, even when the weight of the past threatened to pull them under. Some nights, after the last story was read, the last goodnight kiss given, Rhett and Lyra would sit on the porch, wrapped in a shared blanket, watching the twin moons rise. You ever think, Rhett said one evening, sipping terrible tea Lyra insisted was medicinal, that we'd end up here? With all those little versions of us running around. Lyra leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. Never. In all the futures I was taught to imagine, none included this. A home. Family. A man who still burns dinner despite 50 years of practice. He chuckled. Hey, I made toast today. Didn't even set the kitchen on fire. A miracle, she said dryly. They fell into comfortable silence. The wind whispered through the fields. Somewhere, a nightbird sang. I used to believe strength was in obedience, Lyra said softly. In silence. In perfection. Now I know it's in this. In choosing someone every day. In raising children who ask why, who challenge, who feel. Rhett took her hand, tracing the familiar lines of her fingers. And I used to think love was something that got you killed on the battlefield. A distraction. A weakness. He smiled. Turns out, it was the only thing that ever saved me. She turned to him then, her violet eyes glowing in the moonlight. You broke every law for me, you said. I would again, he whispered. 1,000 times. She kissed him, slow, deep, full of decades of love and memory. When she pulled back, she smiled. Then I suppose it's only fair that I broke every rule of my people to have you. They stayed there, long into the night, wrapped in each other and the quiet joy of a life built not from duty, but from choice, from courage, from love that had defied planets, wars, and species. And inside the house, 12 children slept, half human, half alien, all each one a living bridge between two worlds once at war. Each one proof that even in the darkest deserts of conflict, something beautiful could grow. That peace wasn't just the absence of fighting. It was the sound of children laughing. It was a home. It was them. And it was, finally, happily ever after.